My name is Derek Ashlock, call sign's Baffle. I'm a commander in the United States Navy. I'm the commanding officer of the VFC 111 Sundowners in Key West, Florida. We're an Adversary Squadron, and we fly the F5N Tiger II. So the Navy started flying the F-18 in the mid to late 80s, and while early they were transitioning either from the A7 or the F4 to fly F-18s. I went directly from flight school into F-18, so that was designated as a Hornet baby. So I didn't go Tomcats to F-18s or A6s to F-18s or A7 to F-18s. So I wasn't the first Hornet baby, of course, but yeah, I was one of the Hornet babies, we were still called. So so I flew the F-18, got selected F-18s, and went to Lemoore, California, where I became a Lemoran. Then I flew with the VFA 94, the Mighty Shrikes. Did 2 cruises on the Abraham Lincoln and a REMPAC on the Kitty Hawk, which was interesting. I went back to VFA 125 as an instructor, and then became the F-18 model manager. And from there, I got out of the Navy and flew for one of the major American airlines. Did that for about 7.5 years. I got out in New Year's Eve of '98. So '99, I started January 4th, and September 11th happened. I had tried to get back in the Navy, in the Navy Reserve, the Fighter Reserve Squadron at Navy Dallas had moved to Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth. They saw Tomcats. They were transitioned to F-18s, and I was went in and talked to the XO. Hey, I'm coming off of probation. I've got time to work. Well, when all this is going on, well, we had a baby. I changed airplanes. Next thing you know, September 11th happens, of which. Just an interesting by note, I had a New York layover and flew out of LaGuardia on September 10th. So just a kind of interesting thing. So I tried to get back in. They're like, yeah, we're busy with all this war stuff. So I tried about because I missed the people. I missed the flying. And the little secret was I thought I missed the flying more, but I really missed the people more. Not just the ready room, but the enlisted sailors that just work so hard to keep this squadron running, a squadron like this running. It takes admin people, it takes controllers, it takes supply people. The amount of effort and people that go into keeping this squadron running at the level that it runs 52 weeks a year is immense. So I missed that. I still wanted to come back in and fly, but it wasn't to be. So I started working for a defense contractor, and one of the subcontractors that was working for me was one of my students, and he was flying C-40s, the Navy's cargo version of a 737 in Fort Worth. And he said, hey, we just hired an Army helicopter guy. Why don't you come back in? I said, well, I've been out for 9 years now. And he's like, yeah, but it'd be awesome. So I applied, and after getting all my stuff back in through the Navy Reserve, I applied, I rushed that squadron. I got picked up by a C-9 squadron because I was flying the Super 80 American and Super 80 DC-9, basically same. A lot of commonality. So I was like, okay, well, it's 20 miles from my house. It's easy. I'll do this, and we'll just see where it goes. Well, they shut the squadron down. So I'm like, okay, well, now where do I go? And they shut it down pretty quick. I had friends that were flying with the reserves. They're still flying F-18s, and the reserves are like, yeah, you've been out a long time. I don't know that we can get you back in. So I called a friend of mine that was in my new hire class, and he was the reserve component commander in Kingsville, Texas, which is Sinatra Flight School of jets. I called him. I said, hey, I'm not looking for a job, and you know where I could go fly? And he's like, well, come down here and fly T-45s. Well, I went through flight school in the T2 and the A4, which were long gone, so I've never flown the T-45. He said, well, if you come down here, we'll get you selected, and we'll put you through the syllabus. So I did. And there I went back down there. I had applied to VFC 111 to be a CELRES as well, and they were understandably reluctant to press the button on a older person. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a Sinatra guy. I had a couple friends down there that I flew F-18s with, so it won't be that bad. I no more got down there in 111 called, hey, you want to come down fly F-5s? Like, well, I just said yes to Sinatra. I talked to my friend. I was like, man, if you tell me no, it's no, but it's F-5s. And he's like, well, it's not the Chinese. Hell, I'd go fly F-5s if they told me right now. So I'm like, all right, well, that tells me it's okay. And I came down here, and I've been down here ever since, almost a decade down here. Went through the department head track as a CELRES 04, as part-time CELRES. And then I made 05. They sent me to TOPGUN Adversary class. So, well, you never, 100% of the shots you don't take won't go in. Hey, can I be CO? I applied once, and I'm like, no, but thanks for applying. Applied again, no. Okay, thanks for applying. It's like, okay, well, third time's charm, and it's selecting for 111 specifically, and I got selected. So that's how I ended up. Then I was the PXO down here for the better part of a year and a half, and then I was executive officer for 15 months, and I've been in this job for, I think, about 10 months now. So they're 15-month tours in the reserve, so 18 months in the fleet, so a little bit less. I'm trying to wring every drop of fun and excitement out of this. First, let me describe VFC 111. We're a Navy composite squadron in that we have active duty, so pilots that have come directly from the fleet as lieutenants, junior officers, with one sea tour behind them. Also here we have FTS, that's full-time support, and they're in the Navy Reserve, but they're here full-time. So those are, we have a few billets of those for department heads, so they're lieutenant commanders. Then we have CELRES, which is selectively retained Navy officers who also fly for, they have a main job, and a week or two a month they come down here to the passion job to teach using the skills that they had developed in the fleet years ago. Well, obviously right now we have a pilot crunch in the Navy with all the airlines hiring. They're pulling the talent out of the military, out of the Navy, Marine Corps. They're pulling that talent out for money and for quality of life. So everybody who's been in the fleet, 6-month cruises used to be bad enough. Now they're doing 9-month cruises. The pay is so much greater. It's such a pull that it's pulling all the talent out of the fleet right now. Not all the talent, of course. Some people stay, but with numbers, you're losing a lot of high-quality people. So the reserve component, again, these are guys that they're giving up money to come down here. They can make more money at their airline job to come down here. So they're leaving a lot of money on the table. They're leaving time with their family. They bid around for open time, come down here, or they're losing trips with their airline or air carrier to come down here. So this is a passion. This is nothing that anybody does for money. They're actually losing money by coming down here. That's how much we love it, and that's how much we love the camaraderie that we have, flying our little F5, which is just a ball to fly. And to train the fleet, because we were there. We knew, well, I'm a little further reserved than away from it than most, but guys, remember, man, when I was in the fleet, I wish my SFARP, FRS, debt, whatever, with the adversaries, man, with the bandits, I wish I could have done this way, this way or that, and now you have the chance to do that. We're using a aircraft that was developed in the late 50s, flown in Vietnam, and we're using it as an adversary. The Navy's been using it as an adversary, professional bad guy, if you will, since the mid-80s. These aircraft were originally Swiss aircraft. The Swiss sold them to the United States after they bought F-18 in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and we've been flying them ever since. Well, our job is to train the fleet pilots in what they're likely to see in an enemy. So name your country that we're in conflict with. It's our job as adversaries to know what they do and how they do it. So we provide that simulation or emulation, if you will, to our fleet pilots for their training before they deploy into the theater in question. So they will have already seen, trained, and fought against us, which is likely what they're going to see in theater. Well, in our squadron, we have roughly 30 pilots, and 92% of our pilots are Top Gun graduates. So you have to go through a lot of school, a lot of education, have a lot of experience in order to be an adversary. And it's not just taking a blue fighter, I'm flying on the tip of the spear off the boat one day, and because I've got all the quals on the blue side, that doesn't mean that I can be a red guy, because I know I have to study my adversary and what he's going to do, but it's another thing to study and know what he's going to do than to be it. And that's the difference, where we are the countries in question fighter pilots, and we provide that to the fleet. So it's different from just saying, all right, I'm going to be the guy that you fight this time. It's a lot more, there's a lot more study and a lot more involved with it. Well, they're both the same. They happen at the same time. So Top Gun will have a blue fighter section. Those are the guys that are still flying. They're going to the weapons school. They're going to stay as Top Gun instructors, and they're trained to employ the F-18, the F-35, what the Navy fighters are right now. And they're trained to employ them to the highest order of magnitude. The adversaries are trained at the same time, so while they're learning their craft on the blue side, we're learning our craft on the red side to emulate the threat countries of the day. And you watch the news, you know what those are. And that's what we do. So while the blue guys in Top Gun are going, and they just have the normal patch, the adversaries, we're learning the threat from the threat country and how to fly and employ like they're likely to see in the fleet. Well, a great adversary pilot has the ability to know the syllabus of the blue fighter, and to also be able to design and craft maneuvers to train and pull out the learning objectives and the training objectives that the blue fighters need. So not only does he need to know his threat of what he's simulating job, but he needs to know what are the key learning aspects that the blue side needs to work on this time. And we will develop our tactics, our threat tactics, based on the knowledge of what they need to train to. Yeah, the gray-haired guy, they're earned, and they're earned behind the boat at night. And all of us here have done numerous cruises, 3, 4, 5, 6 cruise, 6-month cruises, plus the workups where you're gone a year before you go on cruise. So every time you hear somebody talking about, yeah, I did 2 cruises, I had 18 months of workups in front of it too. So it's a significant amount of time. The gray hair guys with the corporate knowledge, not only of the jet, but of adversary. And we've been here long enough, we've seen the cycle of training of how the fleet has gone from A to B to C to D, and we can anticipate that and see that coming. And we stay sharp by going to re-blue and re-red events in Fallon, put on by Top Gun or the adversaries up there, the VFC 13, our sister squadron, and to stay current and educated about what's going on in the fleet, as far as blue tactics, but also as far as as what we're doing simulating the red. And we have a constant trickle of people going through the adversary course of Top Gun, so they bring that education back, and just like we did in the fleet back in the day when the latest Top Gun graduate came, his job was to teach. So hey, remember what you learned last time? Here's what they're doing now. Here's what they're trying now. So we evolve with that. And it's not a difficult, it's not a hard issue, but it's a mindset issue. And when you're more experienced, you've done that, you've changed that mindset quite a lot. That's very difficult the first couple times. You get, wait, they're doing what now? And now, wait, then how do I build a presentation to test that? And that's where the experience comes from. But we know there's somebody out in Marshall on the other side of the planet right now, preparing for a night trap, doing the same thing that we did. And when we were kids in the late 80s, early 90s, for me, going through training and then in the fleet, that there were F4 guys 20 years before doing that, and F8 guys 20 years before doing it. It's still being done today. There's somebody on watch, there's somebody in Marshall right now, and that never leaves us. That never leaves us. And to the pride of what we do, you always want to leave a place better than when you left it. For me, as a commanding officer of VFC 111, that's a very, very high bar. I've followed some legends in naval aviation in this squadron, admirals, very guys that you know their name when it's said in the bar, when it's said at tailhook. Yeah, I remember flying with him. Man, that guy was awesome. That's who I'm compared to, and it's humbling. Because these guys I've known for a long time. There are pictures on the wall out there. I've known these guys, trained some of them. Got to be honest with you, I'm a little older than most. My age rounds to 60 instead of 50, let's put it that way. And I trained some of those guys. I'm very, very proud that I did, but those guys became legends. And that's the standard that I'm held to, and it's humbling. I honestly can't imagine a better job in the Navy. So, and I have, friends that were admirals that stayed in, and they had some very powerful jobs. Still do. They're like, man, my skipper tour is the most awesome thing. They were CAGs. They were air wing commanders after that. They were battle group commanders on an aircraft carrier. They went and ran very large places that we've all heard about. Still, they say this job was the best job. And I see why. I certainly understand it. I don't want it to go. If they let me stay here forever, I'd never leave. Yeah, skipper is a, and again, most people think of a 300-pound guy that was on Gilligan's Island. Skipper is a title of respect in the Navy, and when the first time you hear it after your change of command, somebody says, "Skipper, what do you think about skipper? Can we?" You kind of look behind you, it's like, who the? Oh, me. And when I leave, so my call sign is Baffle. Before I was the executive officer, because we fleet up to the executive officer and then to the commanding officer position, I was Baffle. Or some would call me, for the pilots, everybody else would say Commander Ashlock. The chiefs, the enlisted folks, the other pilots would call you Baffle, even though I was an 05. When I became XO, I became XO. There was no more Baffle, there was XO. And when I became skipper, then it was skipper. And that was an interesting transition. Not only weird to hear, because I've been called Baffle all my life, but wow, I remember calling my first skipper in the fleet, and wow, he was old and he was a little scary at times. Well, I'm definitely old. Don't know how scary I am, but the title skipper for a commanding officer in the Navy goes way, way back. And again, standing on the shoulders of legends in this job of being called skipper of a fighter squadron, not a fighter attack squadron, a fighter squadron. That's a lot. That's a lot, and I'm very thankful that I got selected for the position, and I'll always look back on it with good thoughts and good feelings of the people that I've led in the squadron, the pilots that I've helped train, and to see them get selected and moving on, going places. That's a lot, and the skipper had to, everybody remembers their skippers. I'm a unicorn. Over 50 fighter pilots, near 60 fighter pilots don't exist. There's a reason that they don't exist, because this sport is very demanding. The G's that your body is subjected to, like we're sitting here under 1 G. Well, just 2 G's, with a little bit more than the 60-degree angle of bank, my 180 becomes 360 in flight gear. And it's multiple. So when we're pulling 7 G's, there's you weigh over 1,000 pounds, easy. So it's a young man's sport, and I'm much smaller in stature because the discs in my back have compressed. But yeah, this is a young man's sport, and it keeps me young, having to fight them, and that's what gets me up and has me running every day, has me on my indoor training bicycle every day, doing my push-ups and stretches. I've got kids that are I say kids. I have pilots in my squadron that are in their early 30s with chronic backaches that they can hardly get out of bed with. When I kind of bounce out of bed, yeah, I creak and groan a little bit, but it's forced me to stay in shape. And as painful as it is, I'm not going to let one of those beat me in a basic fighter maneuvers flight. It's not going to happen if I can avoid it. So I work out I try to eat healthy. Don't always do that. But yeah, that's what keeps me young. It motivates me to stay in shape and keep working out. It's like a boxing match. It's a joust and parry. I know my aircraft. I know the strengths of his aircraft. I want him to fight my strengths. I don't want to fight his strengths. So I will use everything in my power to deny him what he wants to do. So I'm going in with a game plan, and Mike Tyson said everybody has a plan till you get punched in the nose. So I go in with my game plan, and I'll start executing my game plan for him to fight to my strength, and then he's turning my action into his fight. I have to do something different. I have to do something different right now. It happens fast, and I'll make a move. All right, he did exactly what I want him to do. This is good. Welcome to my world. Come on in. The water's warm, and it's in the right world. I die every time. I should die every time I go against an F-18. I should die every time I go against a kid in an F-5 that's younger than me, but I don't. It's not saying I'm better than these. I'm just old.